Hello guys, this is Trinity Storm here and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do 8th part of Naruto the Unknown Dojutsu. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Mika looked up at her summoner. "I already know who you are, Master Uzumaki," she said flatly. "I was sent here to be your summon. I was told to find the person who possessed the world's only white chakra. The white chakra flowing through your body led me to finding you here. Hagoromo Sutsuki's chakra, the sage of the six paths." Naruto raised an eyebrow and drifted to his thoughts. "Hear that, Kurama?" he said to the tailed beast residing in him. "She just mentioned the Rikudo Sennin." "Yeah," the Kyuubi replied. "And I'm guessing the dude who sent you the strange scroll about a month ago was also the one who sent her here, then." "I believe so as well. Do you believe she's telling the truth?" he went on. "Who knows, this could be a trap set by someone who considers me an enemy." "That's up to you to figure out, Kit." The fox huffed and crossed his arms. "I've been trying to sense any emotion in her since earlier, but it appears I can't. Either she isn't feeling anything right now, or I can't sense the emotions of summoned animals. I can't help you in this one." Naruto scoffed before returning his gaze to the phoenix staring up at him. "First and foremost, Mika, please do not refer to me as Master Uzumaki, okay? It feels awkward to be addressed in this manner. Just call me Naruto, is that all right with you?" The bird nodded. "Understood, Master Uzumaki," she stated, causing Naruto to sweat drop and Kurama to sigh in frustration. The blonde shook his head and took a seat next to his summon. "Okay, if we're gonna be partners from now on, you have to be familiar with what we people do here in Earth, understood?" Mika nodded. "But I can't teach you about that right now because of some things, and Before he could speak further, Mika cut him off. "Is it because you want to train your eyes, Master Uzumaki?" she asked. Naruto widened his eyes in shock. How did she find out about it? She wasn't even at his apartment yet when he decided to train for the day. "Wait. How did you?" "It's one of my skills. I can read the thoughts of people and beasts alike," she revealed, causing the blonde Uzumaki and his tailed beast to be shocked even further. When she noticed that it has been past a minute that Naruto had a shocked look on his face, she flapped one of her wings, causing a small gust of wind to hit the blonde that snapped him out of his trance and also caused him to fall over. A few moments later, Naruto sat back up again and cleared his throat to compose himself. "Okay, you can read my mind. But please don't make it a habit, okay? Mika, everyone has their own privacy. Got it?" The bird gave a nod. "Understood, Master Yu." Before she could continue, the blonde threw her knowing stare and she cleared her throat to start over. "Understood, Naruto," she spoke, causing the blonde to sigh in relief. "See? That wasn't so bad, was it?" he asked and Mika shook her head. "Alright, now that that's out of the way, do you mind telling me how I can keep you hidden from other people? Because I think anyone who would see you with me once we step out of this place would likely faint or run around in circles. Have you learned the summoning technique yet, Naruto?" she asked, although she was still having difficulty in saying the blonde's name. Her response was Naruto throwing her a confused look, which caused her to shake her head in disappointment. "Then I'm afraid I won't be able to go to the summon realm just yet, Naruto. Unless and until you learn that technique, I will be right by your side," she explained, causing Naruto's face to drop. In an instant, his face went back to its original color as a huge smile took over his whole feature. "Wait, maybe Gigi can help me. I bet he knows whatever technique that is," he exclaimed, punching the air with his fist as if triumphant. "You actually had a good idea for once, Kit," said Kurama, smirking at his host. "Gee, thanks," replied Naruto sarcastically, rolling his eyes at the fox. "Then it's settled. Just allow me to eat some ramen, Mika," he said, looking heading towards the kitchen to check up on the ramen that he was cooking. A few moments later, Mika had to cover her ears because of how loud Naruto's scream was. "No. My ramen!" he yelled at the top of his lungs as he entered the kitchen. Naruto apparently left the boiling pot of noodles for such an extended period of time that the water had evaporated, leaving the noodles burnt. Kurama laughed his ass off at Naruto's lack of attentiveness, and Mika, who showed little to no emotion at all, surprisingly bit back a small chuckle as well. After an hour. After wasting a perfectly good cup of ramen, Naruto had no choice but to cook up another one. In the process, the blonde explained to Mika about how the shinobi of his time live in the world and how they fight to survive. According to her, most shinobi are power-hungry and territorial, which Naruto agreed with. However, he only applied it to the majority of the world's ninjas, claiming that there are still some who are honorable and trustworthy. After tying his Konoha forehead protector securely on his temple, he went out to the balcony and took a breath of the fresh air around him before stretching his arms out wide. "Man, I can't wait to get started training today. Oh, but I need to learn that summoning technique Mika was telling me about earlier." Yellow light started to cover his body. Alright. Time to. Before he knew it, he was being lifted out of his apartment and into the skies. His eyes widened when he saw he was flying. However, the yellow light covering him whenever he used the meteor wasn't all over his body at the moment. He then felt a pair of talons holding him up by his shirt, and when he looked up, his eyes widened even further in shock because Mika was carrying him. While flying, the phoenix looked down at her summoner and she saw him gaping like he had seen a ghost. She sighed and cleared her throat. "My kind can carry 10 times our own weight, Naruto. But in my case, an elemental phoenix, I can go up to 25 times. "Whoa, that is so cool!" exclaimed the blonde, praising Mika. "I wish I can do that with my meteor, though. Unfortunately, carrying people takes a toll on my chakra every time. I'm sure with some practice, and Naruto, you could do just that." She was relieved, and he smiled warmly. "So, where do you want to go?" The blonde looked down and started to look for the Hokage Tower. But before that, he took a moment to savor the feeling of flying slowly. Because whenever he used his meteor, the wind was so fast that he barely felt anything afterwards. So this was a first for him. He never experienced flying like this back then, and boy, did he enjoy every second that Mika was flying. Naruto had told Mika to wait outside the tower for him, figuring it would take more than words to get Hiruzen to stand up and lend him his scroll as well as teach him the summoning technique. And he knew exactly how to persuade the Hokage to assist him. "If that old man doesn't agree with me, I'll just lure him with Kage Bunshin," he mused evilly as he walked through the tower's halls. He didn't even hesitate to open the door to the Hokage's front desk when he arrived. What Naruto didn't realize was that something, or perhaps, someone, was inside the room who would change his life for the better. He took the doorknob, opened it, and stepped inside. When he looked up, Hiruzen was staring at him from behind his desk, and Kakashi was standing in front of it with a man with long white spiky hair that reached all the way to his waist. Naruto furrowed his brows and took a closer look at the man. He seemed strangely familiar, though he's not sure if they've met before. Aside from his long hair, he had red lines drawn from under his eyes that resembled cheetah tear marks. His forehead protector wasn't that of a Konoha ninja, instead it had the kanji for oil on it. His look consisted of black handguards, a black belt, traditional wooden sandals, a red haori and a scroll on his back. "Kid, did you know it's rude to stare?" firmly said the man, narrowing his eyes at the blonde. "And what is that supposed to mean?" Naruto spat, thinking that the man in front of him just referred to him as a pervert. Hiruzen stood up and cleared his throat before things could get any worse. Naruto, I would like you to meet Jiraiya, one of the 3 Sannin of Konoha," Hiruzen stated. He will also be your teacher for the time being, at least until the semifinals and finals of the exams, because Kakashi-kun will be taking Sasuke-kun under his wing here. Uzumaki, the blonde, crossed his arms and furrowed his brows. Why would you give me a teacher who accuses me of being a pervert, Gigi? I'd rather have Zabuza-sensei as a teacher. Jiraiya laughed. Very funny, Gaki. And here I thought you could show me what you can do with those strange of yours you call the Uchtengan. Naruto's frown dropped and he paled. Did he just hear what he thought he just heard? With a face full of shock, he turned to Hiruzen and walked slowly up to him. You told someone else my secret, Gigi? He demanded. To tell you the truth, my boy, I did. Why would you do such a thing? You promised me that I'll be the one to show my powers to the public once I think I can. Calm down, Naruto, Kakashi said as he made his presence known. You can trust this man right here. Naruto laughed. How could I possibly trust this guy? He moaned. Because he's family, Naruto. The blonde threw him a raised eyebrow and Kakashi pinched the bridge of his nose. Look, I'm not sure if you'll believe me, but he's your godfather, Naruto. He's practically your only remaining family member. Naruto made a "you're kidding" expression, but Kakashi simply nodded to confirm his claims. Naruto looked at Jiraiya, who had a smirk on his face, before staring in disbelief at Hiruzen. He's godfather? The blonde's jaw dropped even more as the old man nodded. How? How could he be family? I don't even remember seeing him even when Ka-san was still alive. Hiruzen sighed and leaned on both of his hands that were clasped together. Please allow me to explain, my boy. And so Hiruzen told him Jiraiya's tale of how exactly did he become a relative of Naruto. While they didn't have any blood relation of some sort, his father did pick Jiraiya as the boy's godfather since the white-haired Sannin was his teacher, after all, even if he was a pervert all the time, always finding excuses to sneak up on women. Then there was the time when Jiraiya was the one who came up with Naruto's name, until his Minato died. When news of his death broke out, the old pervert disappeared for over a year because of not being there for his student while venting his frustrations on rogue ninjas and mercenaries. Then he appeared to have moved on and began visiting Kushina with little Naruto on a monthly basis as a way of repaying Minato for his sacrifice for the village. Not long after that, Kushina was kidnapped by his longtime enemies, the Akatsuki. Jiraiya fell into another state of depression and vanished as soon as he learned that the members had murdered her. Today was actually the first day he decided to show up after nearly 6 years. After taking in every bit of information from the Hokage, Naruto looked at Jiraiya for a bit before he snorted and looked away again. That doesn't mean your accusation of me being a pervert is over, he added. You're a pervert as well. I wouldn't even think of it, Gaki. He had his arms crossed. Enough about my personal life. Now tell me about yours. What he said surprised Naruto a little. What? Gaki, do you have a girlfriend? Naruto flushed 50 shades of red as soon as he heard his question. Seeing him act like that, Jiraiya smirked. You do have a girlfriend, I see. Oh, what should I start with? I know. You should make an attempt to obtain her. Before he could finish his sentence, Naruto cut off his vision with his eclipse, effectively silenced Jiraiya. Naruto sighed and turned to face Hiruzen. You told him about my eyes, right? He asked, and the Sandaime nodded. How much information did you give him? Hiruzen shook his head. Just the basics you told me the first time I saw your powers. Who else is aware of your vision? You and Kakashi-sensei, Exactly, so don't panic like it's the end of the world. Did you mention the scroll to him? No. Good. Because if he's going to be my teacher, I'm going to be the one to tell him. The elderly gentleman nodded. That does not bother me. However, I must inquire of you, my boy, Naruto cocked his brow. What brings you here? It's far too coincidental for you to drop by for no apparent reason. I actually came for the scroll to train my eyes, as I've noticed that my meteor is becoming a little sluggish at the moment. Do you think you could lend me the scroll for the day? I'm sick of activating my Uchtengan every time I read another scroll, he explained, rubbing the back of his neck and hoping Hiruzen will consider his request. After all, it was still his, and the Hokage is only keeping it safe. Hiruzen reached under his desk for something before pulling out the scroll Naruto had given him. Naruto-kun, you're developing into something special. Go practice your skills, he said, giving the blonde his trademark grin. Oh, before I forget, Gigi, please teach me a technique. And what technique are you referring to, Naruto-kun? He wondered. For the Hokage, this discussion is becoming increasingly interesting. I believe it's called the summoning technique, if I recall correctly? The eyes of Hiruzen, Kakashi, and Jiraiya widened slightly. What motivated Naruto to learn that technique? Is it because he witnessed someone using it? Is it because he simply wanted to add a new jutsu to his arsenal? If you want to learn that technique, Naruto-kun, I believe you should consult either Jiraiya-kun or Kakashi-kun. They are masters of animal summoning, whereas I can only summon one. He motioned him away, but Naruto shook his head. Gigi, I also have a summon. But she needs to return to the summon realm, but I'm not sure how. Can you assist me? He then felt two arms grab the sides of his arms, forcing him to turn around. Jiraiya was staring at him, but Naruto wondered why his vision had returned to normal. He had not yet stopped the eclipse jutsu on the pervert. Okay, this is all the more reason I need to step up my Uchtengan training, he reasoned. Would you like to learn the reverse summoning technique? He asked, smiling. So, why didn't you say something? Don't worry, I'll assist you. He moved his gaze to Kakashi, who was stuffing his hands into his pockets. Hey, Kakashi, want to help me teach him? He asked. The masked Junin shrugged. No, thank you. I need to get to the hospital to see how Sasuke is doing. He returned his focus to Naruto. But, Naruto, I'm curious what animal you have as your summon. You never mentioned it to me before. What do you mean you have one summon already? Actually, Kakashi-sensei, she just arrived this morning. He scratched his yellow hair. Then you should show her. Jiraiya exclaimed. There's no need to be shy, Gaki. I'm sure she's not as bad as I imagine. Naruto grinned embarrassingly as he considered how to persuade Mika to appear. He remembered telling her to stay atop the tower, and she might still be there, or she might have left already. All worries vanished when she noticed the phoenix flying outside the window, flapping her wings to maintain elevation as she stared at Naruto. There! He exclaimed, pointing outside the window. Mika is his name. Isn't she lovely? The three older ninjas looked out the window, but as soon as they realized what Naruto was talking about, they all fainted from shock, disbelief, and sheer dumbstruckness, leaving the blonde sweating in the middle of the room. Okay, what just happened? He asked himself. Jiraiya was the first to awaken and demanded answers almost immediately. Naruto wanted Kakashi and the old man to wake up first before telling them anything, but the pervert simply stated that he'll explain everything to them once he hears the truth from the blonde. When the white-haired man first saw her, he thought she was a dangerous beast, but Naruto corrected him, saying that while she may appear intimidating, she is actually a gentle summon. When Jiraiya asked where she came from, she explained that she made a mistake while trying something far out in the summon realm, which resulted in her being brought to the real world, which concealed the fact that she was drawn to the sage chakra in Naruto. While Jiraiya was not looking because he was debating whether or not to teach Naruto the summoning technique, the blonde asked why she didn't tell the truth to his godfather, but Mika just said that it was too early for anyone to even know why she was here in this world. Naruto saw nothing wrong with it and agreed to her plan. Following that, the pervert smiled at Naruto and agreed to teach him at the cost of introducing him to the blonde's girlfriend, which earned him a punch to the face. "How about this?" Naruto said, weaving through the hand signs Jiraiya had shown him earlier, but without using chakra because this was just a trial, not the real thing. "Only about," Jiraiya responded. "However, you should exercise caution when using chakra. Make even the smallest mistake or miscalculation, and you could ruin the entire jutsu and waste even more chakra." "What exactly do you mean?" Naruto inquired, both curious and concerned. "Well," Jiraiya paused for a moment to reflect. "It's similar to the clone jutsu in that if you use too much or too little chakra, you get a sickly clone that dissipates almost instantly." "Oh." Naruto stated that he was finally understanding because he had gone through this in the academy. "So if I mess up this jutsu, I'll get a really weak summon." "Is that what you're saying, Arrow Sennin? You filthy brat. You were warned not to call me that." Jiraiya yelled, a visible tick mark on his brow. "However, you're almost there," he said, raising Naruto's brow. "While I'm not sure how it affects the summon animal you get, the amount of chakra you have determines how high up the species hierarchy that particular animal is. But that's beside the point. If you don't use this technique correctly, you might not be able to summon anything at all." As Naruto's eyes widened, he stated, "But where is Mika?" He said this while pointing to his summon. "She's so cool, and any guy would kill for an animal companion like her, but I've never had to summon her before. She had just arrived at my house. I'm not sure about her, but she just said she made a mistake while summoning something. How about I try to summon Kurama?" Jiraiya cocked his brow. "Who?" "The fox with 9 tails. Kurama is his name. What if I try to call him? Will it work?" Jiraiya decided to shoot him down quickly before Naruto got any ideas. "The Kyuubi can't be trusted, Naruto. He's trying to trick you into giving up your own body so he can be free again," he warned. Naruto shook his head. "I've heard this story 1,000 times, and Kurama isn't bad. Although he can be a little cranky at times, he's a nice guy to hang out with." Jiraiya searched for any hints of doubt in his voice, but found none. He smiled to himself. Perhaps Kushina did tell the truth back then. She was friends with the Kyuubi. He reflected. "If you say so," he added. "But first, why don't we try the technique on your phoenix? She appears to be eager to return home." "Wait a minute, Arrow Sennin. I'm not even sure I could do it right. I could make a mistake in the middle of it and send her somewhere else." Mika decided to intervene at this point, saying, "Actually, that's one of my species' specialties." He stated that he had gotten both of their attention. "What exactly do you mean?" Naruto inquired, perplexed. Jiraiya had a sense of what Mika was saying but wanted to hear it directly from her. Mika was taking amusement in Naruto's curiosity and confusion, which was different from her usual introverted personality. "It's really simple, Naruto," she said, grinning at the look on the boy's face, purposely letting the suspense build up. "You don't really need to summon me. I can come and go here as I please. I just wanted you to know that technique in case I don't show up in an emergency," she declared, savoring their shock Naruto's more so than Jiraiya. "Speaking of which, I should probably get going. Have a good time training, you two." She disappeared in a puff of smoke with a smirk as a gust of wind blew through the area. Everything was silent. "What the fuck is going on here?" Naruto yelled, causing Jiraiya to perspire. "How did she go AWOL? I didn't tell her to go yet." "Calm down, Gaki. I believe she had a good reason for leaving." He tried calming him down. "Calm down? How can I calm down when she left without telling me how or why?" He continued screaming, causing Jiraiya to sigh and facepalm in frustration before he knocked out Naruto with a smack to the head. Jiraiya offered Naruto the entire day after he awoke a few minutes earlier, because the pervert wanted them to train in a place where no one could see or hear them. Because Jiraiya was associated with the toads of Mt. Myoboku, it is in his book to train peacefully. Naruto hesitated at first because he wanted to train as soon as possible, but he stopped himself when he saw a familiar face. So, much to Jiraiya's delight, he thanked the white-haired Sannin and promised to do his best the next day. The blonde wasted no time in zooming through the streets in search of his favorite girl in the world, as he still had one day of free time before his official training with Jiraiya. Given the amount of training he required and desired, he may be unable to devote time to his personal life. But if he was going to spend time with someone, it would have to be Hinata. His teammates would also be a good option if Sasuke wasn't in the hospital right now. He chose to have Mika carry him and fly above the village to find Hinata, but that won't work either because as soon as the villagers see a phoenix carrying him, they'll either want Mika to themselves or it'll give them another reason why Naruto should be killed as soon as possible. In some ways, he was forced to use his meteor. He had nothing after about 2 minutes of searching. He flew back up to the Hokage monument and landed atop the Yondaime's stone face. In exhaustion, he wiped the sweat from his brow and panted slightly. He had been using meteor almost every second for the past few weeks, beginning with the training he had received prior to the Chunin exams, and it was slowly wearing him down. Perhaps his training with Jiraiya will help him improve his vision. Hey, Kurama, he thought to himself. What exactly do you want, Kit? The fox responded, waking up with only one eye open from his slumber. Do you believe there is a problem with my meteor? I've been feeling strange every time I use it since the beginning of the exams. Kurama tapped his chin with the tip of his finger. Well, now that you mention it, I've noticed you're becoming a little too slow with your jutsu. Naruto looked at the beast, perplexed. He wasn't sure if he had understood Kurama correctly. What? He inquired once more. I believe you should improve your eyes even more once you begin training with that pervert, he advised. The training you're currently doing is insufficient, and if you get too carried away, you'll lose sight of your true abilities. Am I correct? The only response he received from the blonde was silence. So I'll take your silence as a yes. If you still intend to see your girlfriend, I would advise you not to use meteor when searching. Doing so could result in disaster. Later, Gaki. He then closed his eyes and drifted off into dreamland. As he stared at the village, Naruto's focus returned to the real world. The wind wasn't particularly strong today, but it was enough to cause the trees to sway slightly. Okay, Hinata isn't at the village, he thought to himself, shifting his gaze to the training grounds in the process. I'll use it once more. If she isn't there, I'll just use my own feet to find her. He concluded as a yellow light flared off his body. On the practice fields, Kiba ducked as Hinata threw another Juken strike at him, with Akamaru keeping a close eye on him. Kurenai, their Jonin teacher, was not with them at the time because Asuma promised her a date that evening, leaving Team 8 to train alone. They were currently taking turns sparring, and for this one, Kiba and Hinata were fighting in a clean taijutsu fight with no ninja tools, jutsus, or animal companions to aid them. Shino was also taking a break while eating the bento he had packed for the day. Even though they were evenly matched for the majority of their fight before Kiba, the Hyuga heiress managed to outlast him. Seeing the girl fight during the exams and brawling with her earlier made him realize how far he had trailed behind her, and she had previously been known as a weak and shy girl. He wanted to be stronger as well, so he could fight alongside her on equal ground and defend himself against future enemies. And she was still holding her own against a fully energized Kiba right now. Given the way she's fighting, she might be stronger than the two of them combined right now. For the Hyuga, she can admit that she did not grow in strength. She has a long way to go before reaching Naruto's level. Hinata was fighting solely on courage and instinct, which she had learned from Naruto during their weeks of training together. Despite improving her endurance and speed and learning one jutsu from the Uzumaki, she still considers herself to be an average-level kunoichi. She is still unsure whether she can beat her cousin Neji in the semifinals by herself or with Naruto's assistance, but she is determined not to give up. Naruto didn't want her to give up. He wanted her to be strong and brave like him. "Hey there, Hinata." A voice called out, causing all three members of Team 10 to look up from whatever they were doing to see who had just spoken. Naruto Uzumaki approached them from a distance, waving his arm in greeting and a big smile on his face. "Seems like you're all totally focused on training right now," he observed. "Naruto-kun," exclaimed Hinata, running over to him and wrapping her arms around his neck in a hug. "Nice to see you again," she stated unequivocally, even in front of her teammates. After all, their secret relationship was no longer a secret after what happened during the second Chunin exams test. "Nice to see you, Hinata," Naruto said. They were forced to back up when they heard Kiba groan. "Can nothing separate the two of you?" He chuckled. "What is that supposed to mean?" inquired Naruto. "Take a look at yourselves. I can tell you two saw each other not long ago, but now you act as if you haven't seen each other in a year," he said, laughing. "Can't you two try to live without each other for even a day? That is unavoidable when our team is on a mission." Naruto narrowed his eyes at him for a brief moment before returning his attention to Hinata. "In any case, Hinata, I have a question for you." She gave him a look that said, "Go on. What do you think about spending some time together? Please?" With a small grin on his face, he inquired. She shook her head and crossed her arms amusingly. "It's exactly what Kiba-kun said, Naruto-kun. We always spend time together, as much as I enjoy it, and to be honest, I rarely have time for my teammates, to the point where I sometimes ignore them. Please understand my apologies, Naruto-kun. We need to be prepared for the semifinals and finals because all three of us will be competing," she said, her voice sad. "Don't worry, I'll spend some time with you tomorrow before rejoining Kiba-kun and Shino-kun in training, okay?" She turned around to return to her sparring session, but Naruto spun her around, trapping her in his gaze. "But Hina-chan, this is critical," he begged. "What exactly do you mean, Naruto-kun? I won't be able to spend time with you tomorrow." "Why?" "Because earlier, one of the Sannin, Jiraiya, arrived in the village and agreed to be my teacher for the rest of the month, while Kakashi-sensei will train Sasuke once he is released from the hospital." Kiba and Hinata's eyes widened as he mentioned the Sannin's name. Kiba's voice drowned out Hinata's voice before she could speak. "Did you just say, Jiraiya?" he wondered. "Yeah, why?" Naruto asked. "I'm familiar with him." "Do you have?" "Yeah. When I was a kid, Okawa-san told me stories about him." He said this before kneeling down to stroke Akamaru's head. "He was one of 3 legendary shinobi considered by the village after defeating a man named Hanzo. That Hanzo guy said Jiraiya and 2 other shinobi were the only ones who could compete with him, so he dubbed them the 3 legendary shinobi, or simply Sannin." The blonde's eyes widened with surprise and shock. "Wow, I had no idea," he admitted. "I had no idea what Sannin meant until now." "Well, now you do," Kiba smirked, his arms crossed. "And you owe me lunch, Naruto," he continued. The blonde ignored him and returned her attention to Hinata. "Do you see now why I can't be with you tomorrow, Hinata?" She gave a nod. "So, what do you think?" "Actually, I'm ready to go right now. Simply say the word." Hinata wanted to spend the rest of the day with Naruto now that she knew why he wanted to spend time with her so badly. Because of this, she was hesitant to decline him again. Well. Sure, Naruto-kun, but please. Just let me say goodbye to Shino and Kiba for the day." she said, pointing to Shino and Kiba. Naruto just shrugged, so she dashed over to the two of them. Are you both okay with this? I don't want to hurt both of your feelings by making you think I favor Naruto-kun over you two. She begged, clasping her hands and looking at her teammates with sad eyes. Yeah, Kiba snorted, waving her away and suppressing a laugh. Just go spend time with your boyfriend, Shino and I are perfectly fine here. Hinata blushed furiously as her cheeks heated up. Be boyfriend? She exclaimed to herself. He's not my boyfriend. She exclaimed, a huge blush covering her entire face. We aren't that far into our relationship yet. She slapped her palms over her mouth in embarrassment as she realized what she had just said. Although I wish it were. She finished in her head. Oh ho, that blush on your face says otherwise, Hinata, Kiba teased, making the girl even more agitated. Would you give up? She rambled, stomping her foot on the ground, which Naruto found amusing. Kiba-kun, you're a jerk. You can be a real jerk at times. She looked at Shino, who was still eating his bento while leaning against the tree. At the very least, someone here can confirm that everything I'm saying is correct. Naruto-kun is not my lover. Shino-kun, are you sure? She smirked as she looked at the bug user. Shino paused his eating for a moment and turned to face Hinata. He's not? He asked in his usual monotone tone, with a slight teasing tone. Hinata's mouth hung open as her cheeks burned with embarrassment. Kiba collapsed to the ground, laughing his head off with Akamaru on his chest, barking with delight. In embarrassment, Naruto rubbed the back of his head and gently patted Hinata on the shoulder, attempting to calm her down and possibly prevent her from fainting. The Hyuga heiress sighed and took Naruto's hand in hers as she led him away from there. Come on, let's just get out of here, Naruto-kun. She pouted, the blush on her face visible despite her dark lavender hair. Naruto silently laughed to himself as he saw Hinata being teased like that, and when he turned his head to look at her other two teammates, he saw Kiba giving him a wink and a thumbs up, prompting the blonde to smile in response. Kiba sat down beside Shino and drank from his jug after the two had already left. Don't you think those two are perfect for each other? He asked his other teammate, who had just finished eating his own food. I believe so, was his only response. Hinata's face was flushed, and her head was bowed low, despite the fact that they were already in the village, far away from Shino and Kiba. Out of concern, he decided to inquire as to what was going on with her. Hey, what's with the long face? He inquired. We already lost them. I don't see why you should keep looking down. She sighed and came to a halt. I know it's them, Naruto-kun. I'm thinking about something else. She responded. Really? So, what exactly is it? Do you want to tell me? Before she could tell him what was on her mind at the time, a familiar voice interrupted their perfectly good conversation. Hello, Hinata. Naruto. It's great to see you here. The voice said, and the two turned to see who it was. Sakura was beaming at them, and Ino, who was standing by her side, was also beaming. Hey, Sakura-chan, Naruto said. Would you mind telling me why you're walking through the streets with Ino right now? Don't you think you should be with Haku right now? You are aware that you are still in the semifinals, correct? I know that, Baka. She shot back. Haku-sensei and I finished our work for the day early, and she decided to devote the rest of the day to me. I happened to see Ino at the market earlier, so here I am now with her. So, have a nice day, you two. Hinata then felt herself being pushed, and she turned to see Naruto with his hands on her shoulders, pushing her like a stroller. She blushed at his sudden action, but quickly shrugged it off and enjoyed the warmth of his touch. She returned her gaze to Ino and Sakura a few moments later, but they were no longer there. Was Naruto really able to bring her this far? She tried to look around to see where she was and noticed that they were just outside the blonde's apartment. "What are you waiting for?" Naruto asked, smiling warmly at her. "Come on, let's go inside." She simply nodded and followed him inside the building. They noticed Zabuza leaving his room with a small white bag slung over his shoulder as soon as they arrived. Both Naruto and Hinata exchanged glances before approaching the man. "Hey, Zabuza-sensei, where are you going?" Naruto inquired, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, brat, I'll be gone for a few days," he explained. "Old man Hokage enlisted me as one of some guy's bodyguards, and he said it was an A-rank mission, so the pay must be good. Haku will be alone here, but I expect you to look after her until I return. Deal?" he inquired, a dangerous glint in his eyes as a demonic aura began to flare off him. "Sir, yes." He said it almost immediately, fearful of what might happen if he shrugged him off, which Hinata found quite amusing as she laughed at him. "Then great. Then we have no problems. Continue." He called out happily from the end of the corridor, waving his arm goodbye, making Hinata laugh and Naruto's right eye twitch in irritation. When did the demon of the hidden mist become this way? Most of the time, it's annoying and irritating. The blonde was finally jolted out of his reverie when Hinata gently shook him. When he looked at her, she gestured into his apartment, causing him to grin in embarrassment. Sorry about that, he apologized, and she just smiled as they entered his apartment. She sat down on his couch right away, while Naruto went to his kitchen to get them both a cold glass of water. He handed Hinata a cold glass of water after only a few seconds, and the two of them chugged their drinks down. There was an awkward silence between them at first, until Naruto decided to break it himself. He had noticed Hinata was uneasy ever since they stepped into his loft, and he was becoming concerned. "Hey, Hina-chan, you were trying to tell me something earlier." He exhaled. "What was it about that seemed so important?" Hinata groaned. It was pointless hiding it from him now. She loved him too much to keep secrets from him. I think this will be the last time I see you, Naruto-kun," she muttered. "What? What are you on about?" I mean, this is the last time I'll ever see you. For the time being." She trailed off. "Would you mind explaining? I'm not sure I understand what you're saying right now." "My father has become stricter with me, Naruto," she said firmly, dropping the suffix with which she always referred to the blonde. He gave her a puzzled look. He finally realized. He noticed how casually and frequently I left the compound, so he spoke to the guards by the gate and told them to always keep an eye on who I was with. I said I'd be out with my teammates, but now I'm here. I should go home with Kiba-kun and Shino-kun because the guards will not let me. But please don't think I'm ending whatever relationship we have," she exclaimed unexpectedly, catching him off guard. She stood up, walked over to the mirror at the opposite side of the room and looked at herself in the mirror. Her hair looked ruined and small tears flowed out of her eyes. "I'd never want to ruin what we've got right now, Naruto. Even if we aren't boyfriend or girlfriend at the moment, I know we have something special and I don't want to let go of it." She looked down at the ground. "I can't let you go because you mean so much to me. But I can't disobey my father either, I don't know what to do." She closed her eyes and let the tears fall before she felt two strong arms wrap around her waist. Once she felt his lips nuzzle down her neck, she moaned slightly and she suddenly lost all strength in her limbs for a second before it popped back up again. "Don't worry. We'll find a way around it," he said lowly, switching to her ear, cheek, and then neck with each word, causing her to lean in closer. It was only a matter of time before her defenses crumbled completely. How do you plan on achieving that? Take a look in the mirror, Hina-chan. Look at how lovely you are. In my opinion, you are the most beautiful person in the entire village. She did as he said, but after a few seconds, she looked away, a blush trailing both of her cheeks as she felt embarrassed. I meant not that be beautiful, she denied, her voice getting lower with every word. He stopped attacking the side of her head, and she moaned in disappointment at the loss of Naruto's lips on her. Her hands moved to the side of her face, and he turned her head to stare at herself in the mirror. You are, for me, he continued, before his hands found their way back to her waist again. We will be together, Hina-chan, I promise I'll find a way. You had better believe it, he lowered his gaze to her. Because I will never go back on my word, that is my nindo. Naruto would swear on it, she knew. She had known his ninja way since childhood, which inspired her even more, and she even has the same nindo as him. Knowing Naruto, he will go to any length to make it happen. Hinata sighed and raised her gaze to him, both hands trailing up to wrap around his neck and pull him down for a kiss. Their lips met and she felt losing control of her body, forcing Naruto to hold her tightly as she leaned on him. Tongues clashed for dominance as the blonde Uzumaki immediately felt blood rush to his lower regions. He had to do something to keep her from noticing, or else she would succumb to her lust because she was too vulnerable at the time, and it was bad enough that they couldn't be together for a while. What more if Hinata was expecting him? That would seriously spell trouble for them both. At 4:36 p.m., 5 hours later. Naruto was the first to stir. The white ceiling of his apartment was the first thing that caught his eye. He turned to the side and saw Hinata sleeping peacefully, hugging one of his pillows. He adjusted himself to snuggle in closer to her, which caused her to slowly wake up. She opened her eyes to see Naruto Uzumaki, her life's love, smiling warmly at her. Hey, lovely, he said. Did you get enough sleep? She gave a nod. It's getting late, so you should probably get going. You previously stated that you were unable to be with me. As he sat up, he pouted sadly. Hinata felt bad seeing him. After a month. Hinata Hyuga had never been so nervous in her life. Not only that, but she was currently alone. If it hadn't been for her teammates, she might have reconsidered fighting in these semifinals. To be fair, Neji's teammate wasn't there yet, so they're even for the time being. But what if Naruto chooses not to appear and Sasuke does? What would now happen? She was standing in an area away from the noisy crowd where everyone was waiting for their turn to fight. She would have leaned on Naruto for fighting advice and warmth right now, but only if he was present. In fact, she had patiently waited for him at the arena's entrance earlier, but it was required that all contestants enter immediately. I hope Naruto-kun arrives soon. She sighed. He shouldn't push himself so hard in his training. He needs to rest. She was then touched on the shoulder by a hand. Don't worry about that idiot so much, Hinata, Kiba said as they looked down at the arena, where Akamaru lay peacefully atop his hood. I'm sure he'll show up eventually. Kiba's right, Hinata, Shino exclaimed, putting his hands in his pockets. You'll lose focus if you let this go through your head. Hinata shifted her gaze to face them. Thank you both so much. You've always been supportive of me. Kiba and Akamaru smiled as she spoke, and she was certain Shino smiled beneath the jacket he always wears. She looked around and saw all of the ninjas and villagers who had come to watch the semifinals of the Chunin exam's third test. From where she stood, she could see the area where all of the remaining exam participants and teachers were waiting. As the cold breeze blew past them, the sun rose gently on the horizon. It was early in the morning, the ideal time to get out of bed and get some exercise. The village was already up and running, with a few stores open and people walking through the streets, though the majority of the villagers and ninjas were at the stadium watching the semifinals. The previous month was filled with intense training sessions that exhausted everyone. No one wants to lose, but there can't be many winners. However, many interesting things happened to almost everyone along the way. Some are considered good, while others are considered bad. And it all began with Hinata, the Hyuga heiress. Hinata discovered Neji at the dojo practicing his Juken in preparation for the fight the following week. Regardless of how he treated her, she has always admired Neji's skill and talent in their clan's jutsus and fighting style. Peeking is impolite. Hinata isn't surprised he's noticed her. After all, seeing through anything is one of the Byakugan's specialties. She emerged from her hiding place and walked over to the dojo, which was only a short distance away from him. He inquired as to why she was present. She doesn't respond and instead asks for a spar with him. He frowns slightly as he is ignored, but then smirks and nods in agreement. For a genius like him, this would be simple. They both took their stances. He tells her that she still has time to back down because he doesn't want to send her to the infirmary again. She'd always come up short against him, but today might be her lucky day. She ignored him once more as they collided and began trading blows. He immediately goes on the offensive, as he did before, and it takes everything she has just to hold her ground. His immense prowess, combined with her previous injuries not being fully healed, proves to be her undoing, as he has her on the ground coughing blood-laced saliva after a few precise strikes to her shoulder and one to her abdomen. He tells her how pitiful he finds her, how her actions and Naruto's are futile, that fate cannot be changed, that fate is cruel, that despite being born heiress, fate deemed her too weak to claim it, and how it was ironic that despite him being born with the necessary skill to carry the same title, fate decided to fuck him over as well by making him a branch member. He tells her that life is unfair and that they are both victims in the end. She narrowed her eyes in response, claiming that this is not true and that a person is only a victim for as long as he or she chooses to be. That while one may not achieve exactly what they desire, they can make things better for themselves through hard work. He snorts, telling her that she's truly delusory if she's still in denial after all her suffering. She responds that he is the one who is in denial, that while he isn't showing it, he clearly wants to break free from within. While her skill may not be on par with his, her eyes can see just as well as his, and she can clearly see that he is in pain. Neji's rage finally boils over after hearing this statement, and he moves to attack her, only to be stopped by Hiyashi. The uncle and nephew exchange a heated stare before Neji pulls his arm back, scoffs, and walks away. That brings us to the end of Hinata's recent events. Aside from her near-violent spar with Neji, she had been working hard with her teammates for the past month. Though she never saw Naruto again after cutting off contact for a while, she never stopped thinking about him. He would always have a place in her heart. While Naruto was on vacation for a month, something very interesting happened to him. He not only had great training sessions with Jiraiya and Mika, but he also had some fun by himself, reliving the pranks he used to play when he was younger, though he made sure to keep his actions in check. But that wasn't even the best part. Baki and Gaara were talking about 2 weeks ago when they didn't notice a certain blonde watching them from the night sky above. Naruto was on his way home from another training session with Mika when he noticed Gaara on a rooftop. When he saw Gaara, the first thing that came to mind was danger. He didn't even have to think about what happened to Lee after his fight with the redhead. So he went to investigate, but told Mika, who was carrying him, to stay back. The redhead appears to be deep in thought as she gazes at the moon. His calm posture and expression betrayed the never-ending chasm of insanity within. Naruto has seen it, and if they meet, he will most likely witness it firsthand. When his senses picked up on something, he was about to leave after seeing Gaara was doing nothing wrong. It's faint, but it's there near where Baki and Kabuto are talking, which puzzled him. He told Mika to listen to them from afar and try to read their minds to figure out what the hell was going on. Why would a Junin from one village talk to a Genin from another? It made no sense. Unless they had some sort of connection? He dashed over to where he sensed the chakra signature, eventually finding it in an alley. What he witnessed will haunt him until the end of his days. Gekko Hayate, or what was left of him, lay there. He's been slashed all over his clothes and body, and his hair is stained red. Naruto would not have recognized him if it hadn't been for his very, very faint chakra signature. He dashed over to the fallen Chunin. He's alive, but only for a short time. He starts dragging him over his shoulder. He looked at the man as soon as his eyes opened, only to be stopped. He was trying to say something, so Naruto leaned his ear against Hayate's bloodstained lips, causing the blonde's eyes to widen. He can't believe it, but a dying man isn't going to lie, is he? He reluctantly gets back on his feet, taking one last look at Hayate before rushing to the Hokage Tower with his meteor. Mika appeared beside him as soon as he landed and confirmed Hayate's accusations as he made his way towards Hiruzen's office. As is customary, the secretary yells at him before barging in. He doesn't think about it because he has more pressing matters on his mind. The old man is smoking his pipe, no doubt trying to relieve the stress caused by all the paperwork on his table. Even though Naruto aspires to wear the hat one day, he must admit that the duties that come with the job frequently cause him to have second thoughts. If things get out of hand, he'll simply use the shadow clone jutsu to solve the problem. He then mentally chastised himself for wasting time daydreaming. He turned his attention to the curious and slightly irritated third village. Naruto begins to speak but is cut off by the old man, who chastises him for disturbing him at such a critical time, with exams only a few days away, and then begins to lecture him on shinobi ethics and discipline, saying he doesn't have time for his shit because too many lives are at stake here. The village is in danger, yelled Naruto, catching the old Hokage off guard and giving him a puzzled look. He inquired as to what nonsense Naruto was spewing. Naruto responds that he will explain everything, but first the Hokage must ensure that they are alone. Hiruzen widens his eyes, unsure what to make of him, but the seriousness the boy is displaying, in stark contrast to his usual carefree knucklehead self, frightens even him. He dismisses his hidden anbu in order to amuse the boy. He returns his attention to Naruto and orders, "Explain." What Hiruzen learned from Mika and Naruto that night stayed with him as he began to make preparations. For some reason, their words stayed with him. The sound and the sand will lead an invasion. We must prepare. The cage box was located above the audience, allowing them to see the matches taking place in the arena. There were 2 seats on it, one for the Hokage and one for the other cage that Hiruzen had invited over to serve as a judge and help recommend which genin should become Chunin. Hiruzen was already seated when he noticed his fellow cage take his seat as well, arriving on time. Kage-sama, Hiruzen said, bowing to Sanagakure's leader. I'm so glad you could join us for the day. Please, Hokage-sama, the pleasure is mine, said the Kage, mimicking Hiruzen's gesture. After all, we must ensure that the next generation of ninjas can hold their own in a real fight, or why are we even called cages? He joked, drawing a laugh from Hiruzen. Hiruzen, unbeknownst to the Kage, already knew who he truly is at the time. According to Naruto and Mika's words a few nights ago, he wasn't the true Kage. The Kage who appears will be Orochimaru himself. It was, after all, Orochimaru in disguise. Who knows what crazy scheme he devised to hide himself from anyone. His true intentions, however, remain unknown. Is he attempting to spy on one of the participants? It was a good thing his Anbu were nearby, and if anything bad happened, they would be there for the Hokage. A Chunin-level ninja then emerged from the arena's open area. Good morning, everyone, said the Chunin, who could be heard throughout the arena. My name is Shiranui Genma, and I will be the proctor for both the semifinals and finals of the 3rd Chunin exams of this year. The rules for this year's semifinals are straightforward. When the electric board selects you, you are divided into 2 teams of 2 and must fight the opposing team. A participant may forfeit at any time, but keep in mind that the match will continue even if it is 2 against 1 until the opposing team is defeated or until there is only one shinobi left standing. If a participant fails to appear before the match begins, his team will be disqualified without exception. Hearing this, Hinata subconsciously looked around to see if Naruto had arrived yet. Unfortunately, he was still not present. Depending on how the match goes, either the last shinobi standing or your entire team can advance to the finals. I'd like to now summon the first set of competitors to the arena. The giant electric board near the cage box began to shuffle through the 3 matches, and Hinata could only hope that it didn't come down to her match with Naruto against her cousin and Sasuke. Not while Naruto was not present. Naruto Uzumaki, Hinata Hyuga, Neji Hyuga, and Sasuke Uchiha, please enter the arena. Genma called out, and Hinata nearly fainted because her match was first. Fortunately, Kiba intervened before she could do anything foolish. Naruto and Sasuke are still missing. Go play another game instead until they arrive. He screamed. Genma was at a loss for what to do because he wasn't the one making the decisions around here. He raised his eyes to the cage box and looked into the Hokage's eyes for an answer. In the cage box. You're lucky that Sasuke Uchiha is also late, Hokage-sama, the Kazekage said. If only that other brat wasn't present at the time, I would have disqualified his team right away. He inhaled deeply. What are you suggesting, Kazekage-sama? Hiruzen inquired. Give that boy his wish. He indicated Kiba in the stands. I can wait another match for Sasuke Uchiha, so let's get this thing started. Is there any particular reason you want to see Sasuke Uchiha fight? You appear to prefer him over everyone else. Now I believe you've gone too far, Hokage-sama. Of course, I value my children above all others in these exams, but if I had to pick the next one, it would have to be the Uchiha. The Sharingan is one of the most fascinating jutsus in the world, and now is the time to learn more about it. It's not like there are any Uchihas in my village, Hokage-sama. Oh, but Naruto-kun is also unique. His thoughts then wandered to various images of Naruto performing all of his crazy antics. In his own way. He continued, his palms sweating at the thought. The Kazekage considered it for a moment before nodding. Excellent. But if neither of them shows up 10 minutes after the first match, I strongly advise you to disqualify them. A Chunin should be punctual, which we are not seeing from either of them. Sounds reasonable, the Hokage said, standing up and looking down at Genma. Attention. He yelled solemnly, drawing the attention of everyone in the arena. The match between Uzumaki Naruto and Hyuga Hinata vs. Hyuga Neji and Uchiha Sasuke has been postponed due to unforeseen circumstances. There will be another match before them because we want to give them enough time to arrive. Tired of speaking so much, Hiruzen slumped back into his chair after saying everything he needed to say to Genma. Not only will I get to see Sasuke-kun fight with his Sharingan. Orochimaru pondered. I'll also see how dangerous that yellow-haired brat is. I'm intrigued by him. Perhaps he has some kind of hidden talent? The electric board began to shuffle between the 2 remaining matches after the Hokage made his decision. Shikamaru Nara, Dosu Kinuta, Gaara of the Sand, and Konkuro of the Sand, please proceed to the arena at this time. He declared, and all of the summoned shinobis proceeded down the battlefield. Except for one. Proctor, I forfeit. Exclaimed Konkuro from the stands, where all the competitors were seated. All eyes turned to him, perplexed, before Genma broke the silence with a shrug before speaking. This match will now be 2-on-1 because Konkuro of the Sand has forfeited. Shikamaru Nara and Dosu Kinuta face off against Gaara of the Sand. Are all of the fighters prepared? He inquired, receiving a nod from everyone. Hajime. Shikamaru and Dosu, and Gaara. Gaara maintained a neutral expression, Shikamaru appeared bored, and Dosu scowled at the redhead with deadly intent. Dosu dropped into a battle stance and growled as soon as Shikamaru yawned. Steer clear of my path, brat. He screamed at Shikamaru, who only looked away, bored. I'm going to kill him. What a pain. Shikamaru muttered as he watched the scene unfold in front of him. Despite being told not to interfere with Dosu, he will still provide assistance because the main goal of the match was to defeat the opposing team, right? Furthermore, after fighting him in the preliminary rounds, the pineapple-haired genin learned a few things about the feared Gaara of the Sand. One of them is that his primary line of defense is sand. If it was gone, he would be vulnerable. But he can be unbeatable as long as it is wrapped around him or he still has some in the gourd on his back. Gaara threw out his right arm as Dōjutsu approached. Suna Shuriken, Sand Shuriken. About 20 sand shurikens suddenly flew towards the Auto Nin, forcing him to duck. Shikamaru, who was just standing there, ducked as well because he didn't want to risk being injured or hit. After all of the shuriken had missed him, he resumed his planned assault on the redhead, only to discover that his feet were stuck in the sand on the ground. Sabaku Ki. Gaara said, Sand Coffin, commanding the sand on Dōjutsu's feet to wrap around his entire body. The Auto Nin struggled to break free, but the more he moved, the faster the redhead's sand clung to him. Dōjutsu's body was completely covered in sand in less than 10 seconds. The people watching were unsure if he could even breathe. Gaara raised his right hand, causing the sand carrying Dōjutsu's body to rise into the air. Sabaku S's sand funeral, he exhaled and suddenly closed his open hand into a fist. The sand covering the Auto Nin compressed with such force that it crushed and killed him. Dōjutsu's blood had splattered all over the arena. Shikamaru was tense after witnessing Gaara murder Dōjutsu in cold blood. If this were a normal situation, the redhead would have been arrested, but this was expected. Furthermore, they signed documents indicating that they were prepared to die. Unfortunately for him, he didn't have much time to think as Gaara directed a powerful wave of sand at him. Raisa Bakuri. Sand tsunami, he said, allowing the sand to reach his opponent while staring at Shikamaru. The leaf genin, who threw 2 explosive tags at it, causing the sand to explode and removing it from the picture. Gaara scowled at him, and Shikamaru said what only a genius would say at such a time. Proctor, I forfeit, Shikamaru muttered as he began to walk away from Gaara. What a drag. He continued, glancing at Gaara for a second to see if he'd lose his cool like Lee did a month ago, but was surprised to see Gaara just looking at him calmly. The winner. Gaara of the Sand, Genma declared, disgusted. He couldn't believe he could murder people so coldly. He hesitantly pointed to the winner, drawing only a few cheers from the audience. Shikamaru and Dōjutsu vs. Gaara XXX. Shikamaru walked back to the stands, still disgusted with his opponent from earlier, where he saw that Sasuke had arrived with Kakashi. But he was different now. The first thing he noticed about the Uchiha was that he had changed his clothes completely. Instead of his usual blue shirt and white shorts, he wore all black, making him appear even more handsome and cooler to the majority of the girls. Shikamaru was swept away by his 2 teammates, Choji and Ino, before he could even say anything, and they began lecturing him on the state of his laziness and how it would affect them if it continued. Hinata was absorbed in thought. Shikamaru's match had ended, Sasuke had arrived, but there was no Naruto. What would happen next? If this continued, Naruto and her would be disqualified. Naruto, wherever you are. She thought as a single tear fell from her cheek. Please, please. I have faith in you. After a few minutes, I arrived at the cage box. I'm out of patience, Hokage-sama, the cage grumbled, rubbing his irritated brow with his fingers. Sasuke Uchiha has arrived earlier, but the blonde kid you've been telling me about has yet to arrive. Has he possibly dropped out of these exams? Or is he simply deafeningly deaf? What on earth is that brat thinking? Hiruzen sighed, thinking to himself. Excellent. When his 10-minute timer runs out, I have no choice but to disqualify his team. Of course, he's still young, and there will be plenty of opportunities for him to advance to Chunin. Perhaps you were correct, Kage-sama, I spoke too highly of him. Exactly. He doesn't deserve to be chunin if he doesn't learn to be punctual. Whether he shows up or not, make sure he remembers that. At the stadium, Hinata took a look around. Naruto was still not present. Sasuke had just arrived with Kakashi, and all traces of him looking tired and ill had vanished. It was as if he had undergone surgery and was now completely energized. He was also wearing a new outfit. Both he and Neji were now staring at her with daggers. She was now unsure whether she still believed in Naruto. She had previously silenced Neji about the blonde's weakness, but how could she now defend both herself and Naruto if they were disqualified? Oh, it would be a disgrace to her clan's reputation, and it would also prove Neji's point. Well, it appears that Dobi finally realized who he was up against. Smugly exclaimed Sasuke. It was his fate not to show up, Neji smirked, crossing his arms. Where did all your confidence go, Hinata-sama? He mocked his cousin. You kept telling me that he would come, but where is he now? He took a look around. So much for keeping your cool, don't you think? Hinata maintained a calm expression as she waited for Naruto to arrive. But her eyes popped open when she heard Genma count down. 30 29 28 27. Hinata looked at him with a puzzled expression, her mouth gaping open. When Genma noticed her, he shrugged. Hokage's orders, he said. If your teammate does not arrive by the time I reach 0, I will have no choice but to disqualify both of you. Hinata's pupils dilated. No. No way, are you serious? Don't be concerned, lady. There will be other opportunities for you to be chunin. It just won't be today. 15. He kept counting, and Hinata began to sweat nervously. 14. 13. She looked around a few more times to see if he was still there. 12. 11. She heard Sasuke and Neji snicker, but she didn't look at them because she didn't know what to say to save herself from shame and embarrassment. Naruto, please tell me where you are. Don't abandon me here. I don't know what I'll do if we're disqualified. She begged herself. 9. No. Please do not allow this to happen. Please, Naruto, come out. I believe in you. Please believe in me. 5. In desperation, she clenched her fists and closed her eyes tightly. He'll come. He'll come. 4. He will come, I have faith in him. 3. She could hear Neji and Sasuke laughing at her, but she ignored them in favor of the blonde Uzumaki who was gradually driving her insane. I believe in him. He must come. He must. Tears welled up at the corners of her eyes as she bit her lip. 2. Naruto. She exclaimed to the world, unable to take it any longer. She needed him to appear right now. 1. A brief shaking of the ground in the arena, lasting only a second, abruptly halted all activities within it. Simultaneously, they heard a noise that sounded like a shinobi had just landed on his feet within the battlefield. Genma narrowed his eyes and turned to face where they had heard the ninja land. Whoever you are, I don't like being a— His eyes widened at the person in front of him before he could finish his sentence. Neji was the first to notice the change in his expression, so he followed his gaze, but this time with his Byakugan activated. Like Genma, his eyes widened at what he was seeing, and Sasuke followed suit, but the Uchiha was also stuttering. Hinata slowly opened her eyes when she noticed the sudden silence. There was no sound from Sasuke, Neji, Genma, or even the audience. She looked at her two opponents, who were both surprised and staring in the same direction. With tears still streaming down her cheeks but a curious look on her face, she looked to her right and saw a yellow-haired shinobi kneeling on one knee with his head down. Imagine Spider-Man landing. So. The shinobi said, and everyone who knew whose voice it was started crying, laughing in joy or kicking in anger. Shall we begin? He asked, raising his head to reveal himself as Naruto Uzumaki. I don't believe it, muttered Neji as he turned off his jutsu. How did he end up here? 1 second. Left. Sasuke mumbled and walked away, stunned by what his rival had just done. Naruto appeared with only 1 second to spare. How could that be? Proctor! Yelled Sasuke to Genma, effectively breaking the Chunin's trance at seeing Naruto. With a raised eyebrow, Genma addressed him.
Didn't that not count?
Because the Dobi arrived late, his team was disqualified. He pointed to Naruto, but the blonde just smirked. Genma shook his head, much to everyone's surprise in the arena. Sasuke and Neji gasped, as did a few others in the audience, while Hinata stood there stunned, her tears beginning to dry. I told the girl earlier that if I reached 0, her team would be disqualified. Genma sighed and crossed his arms. However, the last number I stopped on was 1, and her teammate appeared unexpectedly. As a result, he cleared his throat and raised his eyes to the massive crowd. Naruto Uzumaki and Hinata Hyuga are still competing against Neji Hyuga and Sasuke Uchiha. We'll get started right away, he declared, much to the delight of all the shinobi in the audience and to the disgust and displeasure of the civilians. They wanted the demon child to lose so he wouldn't be promoted to a higher rank. They were confident that if he did, he would become even more powerful as a result. Naruto slowly stood up and approached Hinata. He wiped the last of her tears away and smiled embarrassingly. I'm sorry I'm late, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. I slept late last night, so I awoke late. Hinata gave a small grin before punching his shoulder. Baka, don't worry me like that again. Naruto blushed slightly before noticing his appearance. His clothes had changed drastically since the last time she saw him a month ago. He was now dressed in a black long-sleeved shirt under a zipped-up orange hooded vest with pockets on each side. The kanji for his signature technique, Meteor, was printed in yellow on the back of his vest. In addition, a name strip with his name was patched onto the left side of his clothing. Instead of his usual orange pants, he now wore another pair of orange pants, but this time there was no shuriken holster strapped to it. That particular item is now fastened to his hip. His Shippuden outfit, with a few changes and alterations. Nice outfit, she said as she smirked at him. Really? But I have no sense of fashion. He responded. Hey, you two finished talking? Sasuke expressed his displeasure. We have a match going on here, in case you didn't know. And don't expect me to be gentle with you, Dobi. Don't be concerned, Teme. I, too, dislike holding back. Someone needs to tell you to shut up about all of this nonsense. Naruto said, turning to face his opponent. You're more than welcome to try, Dobi. He smirked. Unfortunately, only Uchihas can defeat other Uchihas. That should get through your thick skull. At the audience, everyone was taken aback when Naruto managed to save the match with only 1 second remaining. Except for Kakashi, of course. He knew exactly how the blonde got into the arena, and it was a good thing he knew the time. But, to ensure that an incident like this never happens again, he'll make Jiraiya a punctuality lesson the next time he sees him. He didn't want his own student to pick up his habit of being late. Wow. Sakura muttered. Naruto actually arrived. I had a feeling that idiot would show up. She gave a sheepish grin that quickly turned into a glare while emitting the same demonic aura as before. But as soon as he arrives, I'll punch him so hard that he'll never be late again. How dare he keep us waiting? she screeched, causing Kakashi to sweat profusely. Damn, I'm not sure how that idiot did it, but he sure made us all nervous. Exclaimed Kiba, earning a stiff nod from Shino. Shikamaru smirked at the blonde Uzumaki and said, troublesome. Naruto has a way of making everyone hold their breath for a second. Yes, my eternal rival is here. I will express my support for him by cheering on his side. You're not going to cheer for Neji? Guy inquired, raising an eyebrow at his student. I'm going to cheer for Neji-kun as well, so I'll say both of their names. In the cage box. Impossible, grumbled Orochimaru. He ought to have been disqualified. How could he have arrived with less than a second to spare? He thought about it for a long time until an idea came to him. Shunshin. Yes, that has to be it. But to use it at this particular time? I have my doubts. Hiruzen shook his head before smirking at Naruto. That Gaki. I'm going to kill him after this. His expression changed to serious. But how could he use his meteor at this time? What is he up to? Could it be that he was interrupted in his thoughts when he heard the cage speak? Well, it appears that the blonde kid you're referring to has arrived, Hokage-sama. Declared the cage. However, he gritted his teeth, you need to teach him some manners about making others wait for him. Hiruzen simply laughed. I can assure you that it will not happen again, Kazekage-sama. I believe Naruto-kun was simply attempting to emulate his teacher for a brief moment. Kakashi-kun is also notorious for being consistently late. That doesn't change the fact that he needs to learn to be on time, Hokage-sama. A Chunin must always be on time. If he does not do so, he does not deserve to be promoted. Of course, Kazekage-sama says. Nodded the Hokage. In the arena. Even if you get the assistance you seek, your fate will still mark you as a loser, cousin. Neji spat at the two, scowling. Be prepared to lose. Naruto patted Hinata on the shoulder as she tensed. Don't be concerned. We can take them. I'm confident we can, he reassured her, and she nodded firmly. Are you prepared? Yeah, she replied, activating her Byakugan and assuming her gentle fist stance. I'll show you what I've learned, Neji-ni-san. She declared, drawing a snicker from the Hyuga prodigy. Are all of the fighters prepared? Genma inquired, noticing the tense atmosphere in the arena. Everyone nodded in agreement. Hajime. Neji and Sasuke versus Naruto and Hinata. Everyone in the audience fell silent as they engaged in an intense stare-down. For a few seconds, no one dared to move or make a sound. Neji activated his Byakugan and dashed towards his cousin, with Hinata reacting just in time for their battle of strikes to begin. Sasuke ran around Naruto and attempted a sneak attack while Naruto was lost in his own world, watching Hinata fight her cousin. The Uchiha pulled out his kunai and tried to attack Naruto from behind, but Naruto sensed him at the last second and rolled backwards to avoid his weapon. When Sasuke saw Naruto roll out of the way, he immediately performed a series of hand seals. Kaiten. Jikaki no Jutsu. He yelled, exhaling a massive fireball at the Uzumaki. Naruto dilated his pupils and examined his own batch of seals. Mizurapa. Sweeten. He screamed, spitting a continuous stream of water at Sasuke's attack, and the two techniques began to compete for supremacy. This went on for a few moments until Naruto poured more chakra into his water, allowing it to completely overpower the fireball. Sasuke was too slow to react, and as a result, he got drenched in the liquid, which made the majority of the audience laugh at Uchiha's wet state. After going through another set of seals, Sasuke scoffed and tried a new technique. Hisanka no Jutsu, Kaiten. He exhaled a swarm of small but extremely powerful fireballs at Naruto. The blonde simply smirked and easily avoided all fireballs. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. exclaimed Naruto, cloning himself 4 times as he charged toward Sasuke. The Uchiha inhaled deeply before confronting all of the clones and Naruto at once. It was a difficult fight for Sasuke, but he proved his dominance by defeating all of the clones, leaving only Naruto. Of course, he had been training with Konoha's legendary copy ninja for the previous month. Naruto chose to finish this quickly so he could help Hinata because he was still catching his breath. He didn't doubt her abilities, but he was concerned about what might happen if he didn't assist her. Efton. Daitopa, Naruto said, summoning a deadly gust of wind that headed straight for Sasuke. Wait, he knows how to release fire, wind, and water. He thought, rolling out of the way to avoid it. He looked down and saw that the Dobi's attack had cut the tree behind him in half. How was he able to perform 3 nature transformations? He stood up and dashed back towards his adversary. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Naruto exhaled, forming the familiar seal with his hands to use the jutsu, creating 4 clones of himself beside him. Go support Hinata in her fight, and I'll take care of Sasuke. He said to all of his clones, and they nodded, heading towards the area of the arena where Neji and Hinata were fighting Sasuke with taijutsu. At the audience, Kakashi quietly whistled. Damn, who knew Naruto could use the wind release as well? He reflected. Well, I recall reading something in his scroll about a jutsu that uses wind, so that could be it. How can Naruto use 3 elements, Kakashi-sensei? According to my textbooks, shinobi can only use up to 2. Sakura, perplexed, inquired. Oh, you completely misunderstood it, Sakura, Kakashi replied. Only regular shinobi can use 2 elements, but there are some exceptions where 3 or more elements can be used. For example, I have control over all 5 of them. Sakura's pupils dilated. Really? Kakashi gave a nod.
Why didn't you tell us about it back then, sensei?
It's a cool ability to be able to use all elements. But I'm limited to earth and water. I discovered this after Haku-sensei taught me how to use chakra paper. Sakura, it makes no difference whether you can use a lot of elements or not. You must be content with what you have and use training to improve it.
To be honest, controlling all 5 elements can be a pain at times, and there are times when someone who uses only 1 element is far more valuable than someone who uses many.
Do you really believe that, sensei? Of course, she says.
Okay. Then, thank you.
I'll make a note of what you just said, sensei.
I'm going to train even harder than before in order to catch up to both Sasuke-kun and Naruto, she declared, causing Kakashi to lightly chuckle at her antics.
In the arena. Let it go, cousin.
We're both aware that you've never beaten me, Neji said as he gracefully kept up with Hinata's attacks.
I won't. She exclaimed, leaping back and hurling shuriken at him. He smirked and threw back a matching set, causing all the shuriken to collide and negate each other. Because of the speed at which they were fighting earlier, they began to pant. Nobody seemed to be able to keep up with their movements. Seeing this as an opportunity, he shrugged off his tiredness and went about finishing the job, but before he could get to her, Naruto's 4 clones jumped on him, ready to beat the living hell out of him. He had his Byakugan to rely on, so he was able to detect his planned attack. He came to a halt in front of her and held his arms out. Kaiten. He yelled as he spun into a blue rotating dome of chakra. The clones were caught in his technique and poofed into smoke as a result. At the audience, Sana, Hinata's younger sister, Hanabi, mumbled. Isn't that the case? Kaiten, he completed his sentence for her. It's the main family's signature defensive technique. To think your cousin advanced so far without any training. He truly is the prodigy of the Branch family. In the arena. When Neji stopped spinning, he noticed Hinata approaching from behind him and decided to catch her off guard. He snapped around just as she cocked her right arm back, causing her eyes to widen in surprise. His gaze was drawn to the open spot near her chest, which he struck with his palm. She screamed in agony before leaping back to rest. Naruto noticed her and turned his attention to her. "Hinata!" he exclaimed before being knocked back by a straight punch to the face. The blonde scowled at him, putting his finger to his lips. "Don't turn your back on an opponent, Dobi," Sasuke smirked, twirling his kunai on his finger. Naruto ignored him and returned his attention to Hinata. "Hinata, are you alright?" he inquired loudly. "I'm fine. Just finish your fight with Sasuke-san," she exclaimed as she charged at Neji. By the time Naruto returned his attention to Sasuke, the Uchiha had delivered a right uppercut and kicked him in the gut, causing him to be blown away. Sasuke immediately countered with a ninjutsu. "Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," he said, hurling another batch of shuriken at Naruto but not before creating clones of them, resulting in even more shurikens. "TCH," Naruto murmured before joining his hands in a hand seal he used in the preliminary rounds. "Suiten. Suika no Jutsu," he yelled, transforming into liquid and phasing through every shuriken thrown by Sasuke. Sasuke smirked when he saw this. Victory would soon befall him and Neji. Kakashi told him that Naruto used this technique during the preliminary rounds and that it was a key factor in his victory, but that the blonde couldn't hold it for long. And, for some reason, the technique has a cooldown time after each use, so Naruto plans his every move in order to save his water transformation technique as a last resort. "He used it," Sasuke reasoned. "This is my chance." Naruto reverted to his solid form just as Sasuke closed in on him, completely catching him off guard. The Uchiha kicked him in the chin, sending Naruto flying through the air. While in the air, Sasuke used the same chain attacks he used on Yoroi during the preliminary fight. Naruto's eyes widened, but not from shock, as he realized they were about to crash back down on the ground. It was the sensation of Sasuke's foot up his tummy. "Shishi Renden!" exclaimed Renden. Lion combination. As they crashed back down on the ground, Sasuke screamed out, finishing his technique. As Sasuke smirked, Naruto was struggling to sit up. "I warned you, Dobi. Only a Uchiha is capable of defeating another Uchiha," he said, wickedly grinning. When Hinata saw Naruto being dominated by Sasuke, she became concerned for him. But seeing them collapsing to the ground with Naruto underneath finally drew her attention away from her ongoing battle with Neji. "Naruto!" she screamed, leaving her vulnerable as the Hyuga prodigy struck her with tenketsus in her legs. Hinata once screamed in agony before being silenced by a kick to the face that also sent her stumbling back. She knelt down and panted heavily. "They're attempting to divide us. They know we worry about each other, so they're trying to get inside our heads." When Sasuke turned around, he saw Hinata on her knees and Neji just staring at her. "Well, Dobi," he started. "Looks like we'll have to finish the job, then." He smirked evilly, leaping to Neji's side as Naruto finally managed to sit up and look around. "Let's finish this," Neji said, and the Uchiha next to him grunted as he performed a series of simple hand seals. "Kaiten. Jikaki no Jutsu!" yelled Sasuke, exhaling a massive fireball that flew straight at Hinata. "Keish, Hake!" Neji thrust his palm out, releasing a massive amount of chakra that supported the fireball in front of him, making it stronger and faster than before. "It appears that this is it for me," Hinata reflected, looking at Naruto, who was still on the ground but watching what was going on. She closed her eyes and smiled at him, a single tear falling from her eye. Naruto-kun. Please stay strong. She said to herself before being engulfed by the enhanced attack, which resulted in a medium-sized explosion and her being blasted away near the arena's walls. She was defeated after the smoke dissipated from the area, her body and clothes receiving multiple burns in the process. At the audience. "Damn it!" exclaimed Kiba as he stormed closer to the metal railings. "Hinata, you need to get up. You must not give up now. Show those cretins what you're made of, lady. I kind of feel bad for her." Sakura muttered under her breath, which Kakashi picked up on. "Kind of?" he inquired. Sakura turned to face her sensei. "I really want Sasuke-kun to win this game, but I feel sorry for Naruto and Hinata. Hinata, in particular, Kakashi-sensei. I believe she barely survived the last attack on her," she explained, earning a nod of agreement from the journalist. Kurenai was taken aback when he saw Hinata in such a state. "I hope she's okay," she kept telling herself. She had always thought of Hinata Hyuga as a kunoichi who needed all the assistance she could get when she was in danger. I'm curious what will happen to Naruto now. Hinata never met the blonde in person, but she always talked about him during missions and training. Though her blabbering could be irritating at times, Kurenai couldn't help but be happy for the girl because she had found someone who could make her happy at her age. Asuma shook his head, pulling out another cigarette and lighting it. "Tisk tisk tisk," he said, clicking his tongue. "That's got to hurt," he observed. "I hope she still has some fight in her. What an ingenious combination technique. Neji has definitely improved over the course of the month." As Lee stood beside him, Guy spoke in his usual tone. "He also knows how to work with other shinobi around him, which I expected from him. Yosh, I will try harder and better in the next exams to catch up to Neji." Youth flames shine bright on Neji-kun. Lee exclaimed, his eyes twinkling. Hanabi screamed as she saw her sister get hit by that combination technique, while her father Hiyashi maintained his usual stoic expression. "Enne-san," she mumbled, oblivious to Haishi's expression of concern for his eldest daughter. At the stadium, Sasuke and Neji were smirking and panting in exhaustion on the other side of the small arena. Fighting them took its toll on the two, but it yielded a positive result. Now that one of their opponents has been eliminated, only one remains. Furthermore, they were able to bring down the more dangerous of the two. Because Naruto was the only one left, victory would be as simple as 1, 2, 3 for them. No. This cannot be happening. Naruto yelled in his head, his mouth gaping at what he saw. "Kai!" he exclaimed internally, channeling chakra into every part of his body, convinced that what he was seeing was an illusion created by Sasuke and determined to get out of it. "Kai! Kai!" he yelled again, but nothing happened. Against his body's will, he stood up and dashed towards the fallen Hyuga, grabbing her in his arms. "Hinata! Hinata! Please get up. You can't afford to lose now," he begged, tears threatening to spill from his eyes. "Hinata! Hinata! Hinata! Wake up. I require your assistance. Please." He buried his face in her jacket, allowing the tears to fall. Once a loser, always a loser. Neji exhaled quietly in between breaths. He'd just proven what he'd told her in the preliminary rounds. He told Hinata that her fate was to be a loser and vowed to prove it, which he did. However, admitting that he needed help bringing her down would be against his pride, because she had improved in her fighting since their last sparring session. During their lightning-fast fight, he was almost struck with fatal blows at various points, and if it hadn't been for a combination technique with Sasuke, he could have lost. "Dobi, give up now. I'll be generous in your honor. There are 2 of us and 1 of you." That girl was weak in comparison to the rest of her clan. With a smug grin on his face, Sasuke called out to Naruto. Yes, he has grown stronger since the preliminary rounds. This is a sign that he is getting closer to killing his brother and finally avenging his clan. Now that the main issue was resolved, he could confront Naruto without interference. Of course, he was confident because Naruto had never beaten him before. Naruto's head shot up as soon as he heard what Sasuke said. Did he just He wondered aloud. Did he just offend Hinata? No one speaks ill of your mate, Kit. Kurama thought to himself. Show them what happens when your friend is insulted. The blonde's tears were long forgotten as he frowned and clenched his fist tightly in rage. And before anyone could stop him, he began shaking in rage, closing his eyes and gritting his teeth. Sasuke and Neji exchanged glances, perplexed by Naruto's actions. Hey, Dobi. What's going on? Before he could continue, his and Neji's eyes widened as a yellow light began to slowly cover Naruto's body as he continued to shake in rage and anger. The small rocks near the blonde began to levitate slightly above the ground. Wait, what's going on? He thought to himself. At the audience, Sakura's eyes widened and she raised an eyebrow at what Naruto was doing. She raised her gaze to her sensei and gently tugged at his vest. She began to speak once he had his attention. What's going on with Naruto, Kakashi-sensei? She inquired. What exactly is that yellow light around him? The man shook his head. I'm not familiar with Sakura, he lied. It could be the color of his chakra erupting from his body or another of his abilities. In any case, I wasn't the one who had been training him for the past month. Sakura nodded and returned her gaze to the game, growing concerned for both her crush and her friend down there. Meanwhile, Kakashi smirked beneath his mask. Man, I think seeing Hinata in that state triggered something in Naruto, he thought. You had better be prepared, Sasuke. I think you just irritated him. He concluded with an eye smile. Hey, Shino? Kiba asked.
What the hell is going on with that moron?
What is that light surrounding him? Chakra? I don't think so, Kiba, Shino replied. My bugs aren't picking up on it as his chakra. Troublesome, Shikamaru grumbled. I believe it's a different type of chakra. Are you seeing this, Tamari? Kankuro inquired. What's up with that kid? Tamari simply shrugged, her gaze fixed on the entire fight. Gaara, on the other hand, had his gaze solely on Naruto. At Kage's box. That brat is up to no good. That yellow light reminded me of what he did in the Forest of Death, Orochimaru thought as he narrowed his eyes at Naruto. The blonde could very well be a threat to his future plans. Hokage-sama, do you know what's going on with that kid? The Kage demanded, his voice venomous. What is that yellow field around him that I don't recognize as his chakra? I'm not sure, Kage-sama, the Hokage replied flatly. I also don't believe it's his chakra, but it appears that seeing his teammate defeated triggered him into rage. Notice how he's visibly shaking. The Kage nodded as he pointed to Naruto down below. He might try something crazy like avenging her, so we should all watch the match together. Don't you think so? Yes, I believe you're correct, Hokage-sama. Though I'll keep an eye on that blonde kid. He arrived late for his match, implying that he went through rigorous training just to fight here. I'm curious what technique he's willing to demonstrate to us, the Kage finished before returning his focus to the fight. Orochimaru. Reflected the Hokage. Previously, you'd only talked about Sasuke abilities Kun's and the Sharingan. But now you've turned your attention to Naruto-kun. Is there any previous experience you've had with him? If he did, I'm glad Naruto-kun survived fighting him. But now I'm curious. What did Naruto-kun do to earn your attention? He returned his gaze to the arena below after a few more seconds of staring at the Kage. I'll deal with him later, the old man said cheerfully. I need to watch this battle first. It appears that the tide is turning. At the stadium. Hello, Dobi. Screamed Sasuke. When I'm talking to you, look at me. What the hell is wrong with you? She's not dead, believe me. I can feel her chakra from where I am. The Uchiha attempted to converse with his friend. Because, even if they were enemies right now, he would always regard Naruto as his first friend, and best rival, even if he won't admit it to anyone other than himself. Neji, on the other hand, remained silent while activating his Byakugan to figure out what was going on with Naruto. But the moment he looked into the chakra flow system of the Uzumaki, his eyes widened and he began stuttering, wanting to say something but being too overwhelmed by what he was seeing. Sasuke noticed his stuttering and decided to inquire as to why his throat had suddenly become dry. "Hey, Hyuga!" he exclaimed, but the prodigy did not respond. "What's the matter with you? You must concentrate because the battle is not yet over. What exactly are you seeing in the dobi?" Neji opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out at first. His eyes. He stuttered after a few seconds, shockedly pointing to the blonde. Sasuke raised an eyebrow in perplexity and looked at Naruto. The yellow light that began to cover the blonde has now completely taken over his body. It was as if he wore a chakra aura or cloak, which elicited gasps and ohhhs from the audience at seeing such a feat performed by a genin. Naruto jerked his head to the side, glaring at both Neji and Sasuke. What surprised the two was not that the blonde was angry, but that his eyes were glowing yellow like the light that surrounded his entire body. Naruto clenched his teeth and shook with rage and anger, while his two opponents took a few steps back involuntarily. Wait, what happened to him? Sasuke reflected, his eyes widening at what Naruto had become at the time. How come he's glowing yellow? Is it a method? I should activate my Sharingan. Maybe I can copy it, he reasoned before channeling chakra into his eyes to activate his jutsu, the Sharingan. What did he do? Neji questioned himself. Earlier, while inspecting Naruto's tenketsus, he noticed that the majority of his chakra went to his eyes, which perplexed the Hyuga prodigy. How could he channel chakra into his eyes? Is he a jutsu master or something? The blonde vanished in an instant, widening the eyes of Neji and Sasuke. Naruto was directly in front of Sasuke, his rival, in less than 4 seconds, with his right arm outstretched and small but sharp raindrops forming on it. Sasuke exclaimed. How did he get so fast? He wondered before realizing what he was in for. Damn it. He screamed as he went through a few seals and tried to duck to avoid Naruto's attack, but he was too slow and was hit by the blonde's arm on his neck. It was, in other words, Naruto's Rainmaker technique. Sasuke felt like his throat had been crushed, and the raindrops on his opponent's skin didn't help either, as he felt them go underneath his own skin, causing his limbs to suddenly give out, leaving him limp. Before spitting blood, the Uchiha struggled to look at Naruto. What exactly are you, Naruto? After hitting Sasuke with his new technique, the Rainmaker Lariat, which caused smoke to cover his crash, the blonde Uzumaki let out a roar and proceeded to blast him away towards the arena's walls. While Naruto was breathing irregularly, Neji couldn't help but take a few steps back after witnessing what his adversary had just done to Sasuke. How did he suddenly become so powerful? I closed a few of his tenketsus earlier. He thought, astounded that the blonde idiot had just done what he saw. He looked at him with his Byakugan once more. He's releasing chakra from all over his body. At the audience, Tenten was taken aback when he saw Neji's expression. What's the matter with Neji? Why is he stepping back from him? She questioned herself. He's not scared, is he? Hiashi raised an eyebrow at Neji's unusual behavior, as it was unusual for the Hyugas to be afraid when fighting against normal shinobi. Hanabi looked up to see her father mumbling something under his breath. No. Sakura exclaimed in horror. Sasuke-kun. She called out to the Uchiha, hoping for a response despite the smoke that had engulfed the area where he had crashed. What did Naruto do, Kakashi-sensei? She asked her teacher. Why do you keep questioning me, Sakura? Her sensei shot back. I don't know much about what Naruto is doing right now because I've only trained Sasuke, except that he's definitely stronger, he said seriously, finally getting Sakura to shut up. He sighed and returned his attention to the battle. That was a new technique. I'd never seen him do it before. I wonder what that was called. He wondered. Damn, that idiot moved so fast. Kiba exclaimed. Did you pay attention to his movements, Shino? When he looked at his teammate, the bug user shook his head. Temari, what's up with that guy? Kankuro inquired. How should I know? She asked, her arms crossed and huffing. That's how he got into Temari and Kankuro's skins back then. Gaara reflected, realizing and remembering Naruto's actions at the time. What a fascinating individual you are, Uzumaki Naruto. Shikamaru wondered aloud, teleportation? Seems like it. Man, that Naruto is a pain. Kurenai shifted her gaze to Asuma with a concerned expression. You seem happy. She exhaled. And you're not? He replied, and she sadly shook her head. Not after witnessing one of my students being mistreated like that. Oh, please. He attempted to pat her shoulder. Even you can tell she's not dead. Right? She sighed and nodded as she looked down at Hinata's unconscious form. Besides, I have a feeling that Uzumaki will be upset with what happened. Look at him attacking Uchiha like that. Haku's eyes widened as she saw Naruto rush towards Sasuke in less than 5 seconds. Zabuza, who was thoroughly enjoying the fight, noticed her expression and leaned in closer to inquire what was wrong. Is there something bothering you? It's nothing, Sama, she said with a shake of her head. I simply remembered something. Zabuza raised an eyebrow but shrugged as he continued to observe the ongoing battle. Where have I seen Naruto perform that before? She wondered. I can't put my finger on it, but it feels like I've seen him do that before. Good God! Exclaimed Guy. Naruto, you have incredible speed. I believe he may have even outrun the speed provided by the Gate of Life. I must congratulate my rival on his student's youthful flame. My eternal rival, I will catch up to you. Lee stated. I can't let Naruto-kun get far away from me, or I'll do 10,000 push-ups for the rest of the year. In the cage box. Was that Hiraishin? Orochimaru considered, swerving bullets now. How could he have obtained the Techniquea? He came to a halt in the middle of his thought when he remembered something. No, it's not possible. If he had learned that technique, he would have reappeared in an instant, but it took much longer. If I am to put an end to this brat's existence, I need to learn more about him. He turned to face the Hokage. Hokage-sama, the Kazekage said. Did you teach the Hiraishin technique to that blonde kid? He appeared to have teleported from that girl's side to Sasuke Uchiha. Hiruzen shrugged his shoulders. I'm not sure what he did, Kazekage-sama, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't the Hiraishin. According to my memory, the Yondaime could appear and vanish in an instant, but that is not what Naruto-kun did. Don't you think it's either he can run fast or it's just a ninja tool? The Kazekage gave a nod. Hokage-sama, those are excellent points. Perhaps that blonde kid will one day prove himself worthy of the Chunin rank. He returned his attention to the match, but he was deep in thought. He snarled, impossible. You're deceiving me, Sarutobi. There's only one way to figure out what's wrong with that brat. And it has nothing to do with anything you told me. He either has a Kekkei Genkai or has learned a jutsu that allows him to move so quickly. Hiruzen's gaze narrowed at the cage beside him. I can already smell what you're planning, Orochimaru. I'm not going to let you take away Naruto's eyes. In the arena. When the smoke cleared, Sasuke had made a small crater in the wall and had his eyes closed, his body covered in bruises and wounds. He collapsed to the ground like a ragdoll a few seconds later, signaling his defeat. Naruto growled like an animal and flew in front of his opponent, cocking his fist back to end it. Sasuke slowly looked up to see Naruto staring at him with hatred and disgust, though his eyes were just glowing yellow and he had no idea if he was really staring at him. Nonetheless, it felt like a glare to Uchiha, so he closed his eyes and braced himself for the worst. The blonde Uzumaki threw the punch, but he stopped halfway as the yellow light covering his body began to fade, causing more shock and gasps from everyone in the room. Sasuke opened his eyes, puzzled as to why Naruto hadn't hit him yet, and looked up to see the blonde with his fist outstretched, aimed at him. His yellow eyes returned to their normal blue color, and his face displayed a mix of confusion, regret, and anger. Neji saw him not moving as an opportunity to attack, so he crept up on Naruto. What happened? Naruto pondered before looking down. Sasuke was lying on the ground on his stomach, terrified and fearful for his life, and the blonde raised an eyebrow at him. Wait, what's the deal with Sasuke? Come on, let me recall. What happened, Kurama? He inquired of the fox. You're not going to like what just happened, Kit. Kurama warned as Naruto rummaged through his memories, recalling what happened just before he was knocked out by Neji. Naruto's pupils dilated. Wait, what about Hina-chan? He wondered internally to Kurama. I need to make sure she's all right. Kit, take it easy. I no longer feel her chakra here, which means she was taken away by medics while you were insane. But what did I do? I demonstrated my abilities to nearly everyone in the village. I had no idea what I was doing. This was not meant to happen. What am I going to say? I'm not prepared. I'm not even sure if I have the strength to protect myself, Hina-chan, Gigi, and everyone I care about. Kurama's face became solemn as he frowned. Kit, forget what you think. He screamed, causing Naruto to flinch slightly. This is actually the ideal moment. Naruto, show the world what you're capable of. You are strong enough. Don't doubt it.
You must do it not only for your friend, but also for all of your other friends.
Don't judge yourself because it will only hinder you. Accept your abilities and allow them to take control, Kit. Believe me on this. Naruto looked lost for a moment, but after a few seconds, he nodded decisively. Neji finally closed the gap between himself and Naruto by rushing silently so the blonde wouldn't hear him. This is my chance to put an end to this. He exclaimed triumphantly. I'm not sure you know what you did, Uzumaki. He boasted. But that doesn't change your fate as a loser. He said as he thrust his palm out to attack. Unfortunately for him, Naruto turned around before his attack could be launched, and he could sense the intensity of the blonde's glare simply by looking at him. He then closed his eyes as Neji stared at him, his Byakugan still active. Sending his chakra back to his eyes. What is going on? Naruto's eyes widened, his Uchtengan bursting to life.
That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.